this one? This one off? Okay. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Sergeants, I'm sure you already have it. Please call the absent members. We have 21 items on the agenda today, 4 proposed for consent. The consent calendar includes SB 957 Waso, SB 1172 Hancock, SB 1179 Vidak, and SB 1199 Hall. Once we have a quorum, we'll entertain a motion to do that. Secretary, please call the roll. I think we'll have to start as a subcommittee.
Eggman.
Aye. Here.
Eggman here. Waldron. Alejo. Bonilla. Chu. Cooley. Here. Cooley here. Gaines. Gordon. Here. Gordon here. Linder. Here. Linder here.
Okay, first up, I think we have Mr. Senator Cannella here, who's going to do a SGMA bill for us, as requested, and now here they all come.
Yes,
Please.
thank you.
The do pass recommendation.
SB 564 creates the West Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agencies for the communities of Riverdale, Burrell, Lennar, and over 168,000 acres of land. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act requires that groundwater sustainability agencies self-identify by June 30th, 2017. This bill creates such an agency made up of the signatory entities of the Memorandum of Understanding that support this legislation. The King Subbasin has been designated to be in a state of critical overdraft and must be managed under a sustainable groundwater plan by January 2020. It is urgent that the local agency responsible for implementing such a plan be set up. With that, I'm pleased to welcome Bob Reed to provide additional testimony or answer questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members, Bob Reed with Reed Government Relations on behalf of the West Kings Groundwater Basin Coalition. Just very briefly, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act tasks local agencies with coming up with the governance model, typically as a groundwater sustainability agency pursuant to that act. This bill takes a different path. It creates a special act agency to do so. The legislature over history has created 141 such entities in the state of California, and they're typically created at the request of local agencies and interest groups and stakeholders because one size doesn't necessarily fit all in California. In this particular basin, substantial acreage is covered by mutual water companies. And in order to get the coverage under SGMA to cover the entire part of this subbasin, this governance model was decided as the best way for the locals to be able to implement SGMA. So I'd be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay. Anybody else speaking in support today? Anybody speaking in opposition? Mr. Gordon.
And this cannot be done under a JPA because of the nature of the water agencies?
That's correct, Assemblymember Gordon. Under the government code 6500 at SEC, joint powers agencies may include a mutual water company, for example. But the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act put in a different definition for a joint powers authority, and it limits it to local agencies only. So the challenge here would be we couldn't have a JPA with the mutual water companies as a part of it. And in excluding them, it excludes tens of thousands of acres that otherwise wouldn't be covered. And so we're trying desperately to comply with the law. This is the tool that they've developed to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. A motion would be in order? Oh, no, we, okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cannell.
Very much. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we would have Mr. Hall, if he were here. Hall, Laura, Waso, Leva. Anybody else have business before this committee today? We are here to deliberate. Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
You don't want to hide under the dais until they first saw the dogs.
Sanitize the members' hands.
I think we have one here. I think she's expressing forbearance.
I wasn't saying that you guys have to, I didn't mainstream, I thought I would challenge you.
We're having a moment call others that haven't signed in to see if anybody can come. Everybody else, they're all in committees. So can you revise the agenda? 1 hour later. Just found it.
I can go to one of my other committees. Yeah, the range.
Welcome.
I see an author. Author sighting, Senator Mendoza.
Madam Chair, members, thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm here to present SB 1011. The California State Legislature is one of the most powerful and influential groups in this country. However, influence in the state politics is not limited to what happens inside of these walls. Local public officials are constantly faced with contract decisions that alter the present and future of California cities, counties, and school districts. The perception that political agendas coincide with personal financial interests is a common concern among the public. Public officers may be seen as having biases in their public contract decisions when a contract decision directly affects a child, parent, sibling, or the spouse of a child, parent, or sibling. In light of these allegations involving our state and local government officials in the last several years, it is time to strengthen our conflict of interest laws in California. Specifically, SB 1011 will increase governmental accountability by expanding the current definition of remote interest to include a public officer's adult children, parent, or siblings, or their spouses. It will require a public official to disclose their remote interest in the contract and be restricted from participating in the decision to award that specific contract or not. Also, I would like to point out that an official would only be in violation of this restriction on voting if the remote interest is actually known to them and the information is willfully withheld. This bill has received bipartisan support, both in the Senate and the Assembly, and I would respectfully ask for your vote today.
Okay. Anybody else speaking in support of this bill today? Anybody in opposition? Members of the committee? Any? Yeah. Okay. I have a none recommendation on this, Mr. Senator Mendoza. It just feels like we just keep expanding it, and my concern is, we are all subject to contributions and making sure that we behave in an ethical manner. I think to continue to expanding the amount of people that you have to declare. What if you don't know? You said you didn't know, but how do you prove that you knew or you didn't know? What if it's somebody you haven't talked to in years. I mean, it seems like it's just getting bigger and bigger, and I think it feels like there's already mechanisms in place to be able to address when you have a conflict of interest, and certainly when you don't. So, well,
Can I answer some of that,
Yeah,
Madam
yes,
Chair?
please,
Thank you so
please.
much. And I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate your feedback. This has been an ongoing issue for many years. As a matter of fact, I've been in politics for almost 20 years, and this began right when I started on city council, when I saw a fellow council member voting on a contract for their father who was going to get a city contract. And I stopped the city attorney before we took the vote to say, how could he vote for his dad's contract? And he said, well, under California law, they can, as long as they don't have a financial relationship. And I said, well, he's not going to vote against his father. He's not, you know. And then, well, it's totally legal because they don't have a business together, and he doesn't live with them. So it's totally legal. And for me, that gave a bad impression. You see this happening over and over. Recently, we saw certain trash contracts going to the brother of the mayor, and then that went on for 20 years, and then now it's a big issue. It happens over and over again in local politics, and the perception that we are giving contracts to a family member, their spouses, whether it be their dad or the children or their sibling, is just this law does actually prohibit that. They just can't vote on it. They could let their colleagues vote on it, and that's fine. It might be the best contract out there. We don't want to prohibit the city or the government entity not to get the best contract available. We're just saying don't let that family member vote for that contract. It just doesn't look good. Perception is really bad. And that's all we're trying to accomplish here, right? And I understand you're right. I think we seem to be expanding over and over again, but this has been a problem that's been lingering for so many years and has led to other problems and many other cases involving the Capitol that I wish not to continue on. So, but Madam Chair, it's just an issue that I think it needs to be addressed. And I keep hearing from our local leaders they don't want to come on board. They don't want to say it out loud, but they see the need for this.
okay, because there's no support for this, correct?
Well, there's no opposition either.
Correct.
Yeah, there's no.
Fair enough, sir. Fair enough.
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, like, what if I don't like my brother? I mean, I do.
Oh.
But what about my best friend? What about my neighbor? What about?
We
That's
don't.
what I mean.
Yeah, we don't expand it to your friends. I mean, that's your call as a leader if you want to do that. If your best friend is showing up, I don't know if you yourself would have to make the decision. We're just saying, if it's a family member, or a brother, or a sister, or a parent, or children, it is
Or a spouse of.
or a spouse of. It is very difficult, and then knowingly and willfully, right? You know that's your brother.
Right,
You know
which is
that
already an ethical thing that if you've got some financial interest, you don't vote on something.
on the financial right. But if you're never going to vote against. You're going to give your brother the contract. You're going to give your dad the contract. It's just, I've never seen it decline. They've always, and because they can do it legally. It's just perception. It looks really bad when a government official is giving their family member a contract. That it's, I mean, you hear that in third world countries and so forth. It is something I think is not needed here.
Mr. Cooley?
Senator, this bill's been here before, and I didn't vote for the last time. The thing that concerns me with it, this provision has been on the government code since the 1940s. It's very extraordinary in its consequences. If you run afoul of it, person is forever barred from holding public office. So it's a very substantive provision, and so then I kind of connect that to the point that we are sort of expanding it, and the bill does provide, as you noted, that if you're unaware of it, you sort of have a hold harmless. But it can just get you into factual disputes if there's some way someone makes the argument that you voted for it, and yet they think you knew about it. It's interesting. I think back to the regular annual trainings in ethics as a city official. The one code section out of all that I always remember was 1090 because of the forever barred provision. So I'm concerned about expanding it when it is such a nuclear option in terms of its consequences, and it can become a factual question whether you actually realize the consequences of that vote on a family member. And it is different when it's, you start getting to the spouses of kids and that sort of thing. We're just expanded very far, and I'm not sure it makes sense to me given that it's 1090 and the consequences of 1090.
I understand. Yeah, I understand. I understand your concern. I just, I'm the second youngest of 9 kids. I got a lot of brothers and sisters. So if they were to come before me or my nephews or anybody, I know that I know that they're related to me. I know I will stay away from supporting a contract because the perception would be bad. And I know that the consequences of doing that would be bad. And every time as an elected official, you get elected, you go to ethics training. Now we all have to go to ethics training. This would be part of that where they say, just stay away from this. No need for you to vote on it. Have your colleagues vote on it, and that's fine. You yourself just have to abstain. We're not denying the opportunity to get that contract.
Okay. And why don't we establish a quorum while we have the requisite people?
Eggman.
Here.
Eggman here. Waldron, Alejo, Bonilla. Bonilla here. Chu. Cooley.
Here.
Cooley here. Gaines. Gordon. Here. Gordon here. Linder. Here. Linder here. Yep.
Okay. Any other? Would you like to close, Senator?
Again, Madam Chair, I understand the concern. I know as elected officials, we do worry about getting trapped or getting caught or getting put in a situation where we feel, we're going to be in trouble with any kind of law, FPPC or otherwise. But I think this measure in and in itself, I think we as leaders and local leaders, once this becomes a part of their ethics training, will be very cautious as to how to proceed on these contract decisions. And their attorney usually stops them and says, do not vote on this or don't, abstain from this. They usually stop you because they know if you have a conflict or not. So I think it provides a lot of protections for individual elected officials if this was in place. So I do think there's some safeguards there. So I would just respectfully ask for your aye vote, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We need a motion? Okay, a motion? Okay. Second, okay. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is to pass and we refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Eggman.
Not voting.
Eggman not voting. Waldron. Alejo. Bonilla. Bonilla not voting. Chu. Cooley.
Not voting.
Cooley not voting. Gaines. Gordon. Aye. Gordon, aye. Linder.
You need 4 more votes. Bill's on call.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, Senator Leyva.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. It is my pleasure to present SB 1000. It would require cities, good afternoon, ladies. It would require cities and counties to develop and include an environmental justice element or alternatively include environmental justice goals, policies, and objectives throughout other elements of their general plan. According to the California Environmental Protection Agency, almost 7.4 million people, or roughly 20% of California's population, live in areas that are burdened by high concentrations of pollution. I had the opportunity to take what we lovingly refer to as a toxic tour in my district, and I say it might even be higher than 20%, but that's just anecdotal. Many of these communities, which I have the honor to represent, are in the Inland Empire. Also, nearly half of all Californians live within 6 miles of a polluting facility, and children in poverty are even more likely to live near these facilities. Clearly, an environmental justice and health issues are an ongoing crisis in California. Land use remains a leading cause of environmental inequities, from the lack of basic infrastructure in rural areas to the exposure of residential communities to toxins from industrial facilities. As a result, the residents in these communities, who are primarily low-income people of color, often suffer from higher rates of asthma, birth defects, and cancer. A standalone environmental justice element, or the integration of EJ goals, policies and objectives in general plans, will ensure that local governments take a proactive and thoughtful approach to the problems and challenges faced by disadvantaged communities. By addressing these pollution and health issues in our most vulnerable communities via general plans, the state will see significant benefits as health outcomes improve and health care costs decline. Recently, the cities of Jurupa Valley and National City implemented environmental justice elements. Jurupa Valley and National City clearly show how environmental justice issues can be successfully incorporated into local general plans in a way that promotes improved health outcomes without impeding development or progress. SB 1000 is tailored to give local governments direction in what issues they should address while still allowing them the flexibility to focus on the issues that most directly impact their constituents. To be clear, this bill does not seek to prevent new development or push development away from disadvantaged communities. Rather, incorporating environmental justice throughout general plans is about planning development wisely and thoughtfully to ensure that we have healthy communities throughout all of California. SB 1000 has received strong support from many EJ, health, environmental, and community groups across California. I have had continuous discussions with stakeholders and the opposition, and we have worked out amendments that address a number of concerns that have been raised. With these amendments, the American Planners Association and the California State Association Counties have come on in support of the bill. I look forward to continuing this constructive dialogue since the health and safety of our communities and constituents is at stake. I respectfully ask for an aye vote, and I have some supporters from CCAEJ and SEHA. Ladies, who would like to go first?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Tiffany Ng. I'm here on the behalf of the California Environmental Justice Alliance, or SEHA. We are a statewide coalition of grassroots organizations representing over 30,000 low-income communities of color across California. SEHA is co-sponsoring SB 1000 because it is a much-needed solution that can address the poor land use issues that remain a leading cause of environmental inequity in California. From the lack of basic infrastructure in rural areas to nearby industrial facilities, polluting homes and schools, many of those that live in these neighborhoods, who are often low-income communities of color, continue to suffer from high rates of asthma, birth defects, and cancer. SB 1000 will improve and strengthen local government general plans that serve as the blueprint of growth for an area. By ensuring that all general plans will include an EJ element or environmental justice goals, policies, and objectives, this bill will allow cities and counties to achieve the following benefits. They can integrate equity into their goals for future development by assessing the needs of their most vulnerable neighborhoods. They can create stronger climate resiliency plans. They can develop processes that allow community members to be meaningfully engaged and make decisions on land use. And they can gain greater access to new investment opportunities and can become more competitive for state funding resources. In sum, we need to proactively plan for and address environmental justice concerns when developing long-term visions for land use and future growth. We cannot afford to continue making land use decisions that harm our communities and our climate. For these reasons, we respectfully urge your aye vote on SB 1000. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person speaking in support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michelle Hassan. I represent the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice, CCAJ, based in Jurupa Valley. We are a 38-year-old environmental justice organization, and we use the lens of environmental health to bring people together and improve social and environmental health in our community and the region. Jurupa Valley, as the Senator mentioned, is one of only 2 cities in the state with standalone EJ elements. I'm here today to talk about how this planning framework enormously benefited some of the most vulnerable communities in our city. And in such, it transformed EJ communities in Jurupa Valley and ensured that EJ communities are not an afterthought in planning. Rather, they can share the vision of growth for our city's future. Jurupa Valley's EJ element was adopted recently, November 6th of 2014, and since has received regional, local, and national planning awards. But that's not the most important part. The most important part is what this element has done to a specific EJ community and how the planning effort and process has helped us to identify environmental justice communities within the boundaries of our jurisdiction, improved mitigation for these communities, and improved above and beyond access to public process and local government. The community of Mira Loma Village is an environmental justice community. It is extremely high poverty rates, high Latino community, and as USC has noted, the students in Mira Loma Village have the slowest lung growth in the region. This community has over 100 homes in close proximity to toxic industrial uses. 800 freights a day pass through this community. And what did this environmental justice element do? It really helped guide mitigation measures. Thanks to the environmental justice element, now the residents of Mira Loma Village have air filters. There's a restricted truck route. And above and beyond The residents of Mira Loma Village and the residents of Jurupa Valley participated in extensive public outreach processes. Over 500 residents participated in 2 town hall meetings alone. Residents in Jurupa Valley were primary stakeholders and partners in developing the vision of growth so that disadvantaged communities who are usually an afterthought in planning, who are planned for in a reactive way, were now planned for in a proactive way and form part of growth for this community. And this is why I respectfully urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Other people speaking in support, and just name an organization, please.
Ingrid Brostrom with the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment, representing the Central Valley, and we're in strong support.
Thank you.
Jenna Price on behalf of the California League of Conservation Voters and Transform in strong support.
Thank you.
Jeannie Wardweller with the California Bicycle Coalition in support.
Thank you.
Bill Sadler with the Safe Routes to School National Partnership in support.
Thank you.
Phoebe Seaton, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability in support.
Thank you.
Gabrielle First with the Sierra Club California in support.
Andrea Ventura with Clean Water Action in support.
Thank you.
Vanessa Martinez on behalf of the Community Water Center in support.
Julie Snyder representing the Planning and Conservation League in support.
Thank you.
Reed Addis on behalf of the Breast Cancer Fund in support.
Juan Altamirano on behalf of Audubon, California in support.
Quentin Foster also on behalf of California Environmental Justice Alliance in strong support.
Kiana Valentine on behalf of the California State Association of Counties thank the author and sponsor for the amendments that allowed us to remove our opposition in support today.
Thank you.
Lauren De Valencia, representing the American Planning Association. Thank you very much for working with us on those amendments, and please do me in support today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tracy Ryan, Rural County Representatives of California. With the amendments taken last week, we're now neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, people speaking in opposition to this bill today.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. Jason Ryan, League California Cities. After so much support, it's difficult to come up here in opposition. But I do have to say our opposition is becoming less and less thanks to all the hard work of the senator and her staff. We greatly appreciate all of her efforts. We really are seeking a couple of small, minor changes, and that will absolutely remove our opposition to the bill. 2 of them are really technical. I'm not going to take your time with it. The third really is a definition of a low-income community. So in the bill now, it defines what a disadvantaged community is. We all know what that is because they're using Cal EnviroScreen. The second piece is a reference to low income. There's a great deal of uncertainty for us what low income actually means, but I think a solution to that actually fell into our laps perhaps today in Senate EQ. There actually is a definition of a low income community in AB 1550 by Assemblymember Gomez, and we would hope that perhaps we would use that definition for consistency's sakes, but then also to remove any sort of confusion. And if those amendments are taken, we'd be happy to remove our opposition to the bill.
We would be happy to look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nick Cameron on behalf of the California Building Industry Association. Begin by just simply saying that as home builders, and you all recognize, I hope, the need for housing in California, I don't hear the motivation for this bill as being something that targets new housing. We bring new housing into communities that need new housing. They are clean projects. We are subject to some of the strictest rules in the country, both from the federal, state, regional, and local levels, that cover all aspects and every conceivable environmental impact that you could think of. Whether or not it's even something as minor as noise and light that affects neighboring properties. We also have CEQA in case anything slips through the cracks. We have a very robust private right of action in CEQA to ensure that our projects are the cleanest in the country and that we are providing housing and well-paying jobs for those communities that we work in. And so what we're concerned with primarily with this bill is the fact that when you put something in a general plan, our projects have to be consistent with that general plan. And there's no way of getting around that. What we don't want to do is unnecessarily drive up the cost of new housing that are needed in these communities to mitigate impacts that they have no causal nexus to. And this is our fundamental concern. So what we're looking for is some language in the bill that indicates an intent not to do that. It is a prohibition required by the Constitution that we want some recognition in this bill of simply to have the practitioners who are going to be looking to it and trying to implement it be aware of it, rather than have us involved in unnecessary, costly litigation that doesn't really accomplish anything. So with that, we are opposed today.
Okay. That makes sense, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are definitely not the target of the bill. I mean, new houses don't generally cause pollution. And that's what the intent of the bill is to not build those beautiful new houses and have someone, a polluter, build right next to you. So come see us. Let's talk.
Okay. Because I think the concern was, like somebody mentioned, air filters, that a new development, that wouldn't be contingent upon a new development to put air filters in another part of town.
Right. So let's talk about that. I'm sure you are not who we're worried about.
We've shared some amendments with the author's office as well.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. I haven't seen them, but we'll definitely look at them.
Okay. Thank you. Others speaking in opposition to
Amy Mogg on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce in opposition.
Good afternoon, Kira Ross on behalf of the City of San Marcos. So we would echo the concerns of the League of California Cities and some of the comments that they made.
Yeli Gavich with the California Association of Realtors, echoing the concerns of the Building Industry Association. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bill's been moved, seconded. Questions from the committee? Mr. Gordon.
Just not so much a question and comment. I intend to vote for the bill today, but I do hope that both the concern of the league and I do think we need a stricter definition of disadvantage. And I've looked at 1550 on the assembly side. I think that it probably is a good model. And I would, if this comes to the floor, I'd hope also to see some language that deals with the concerns of CBIA. But I will vote today.
Great. Thank you very much. And it sounds like a good definition. You're right. We have it defined in the bill a disadvantaged community, but we have not defined low income. So definitely want to look at that, and we'll work on it for sure.
Mr. Cooley.
I want to say I like the bill. I think having a definition of low income is a good idea, but I think having that concept there alongside the environment screen is also good. My city, when it formed, a significant number of my census tracts were low and moderate income. Those are folks who are not necessarily engaged in the cityhood effort. I think having something that ensures that as you do the planning process, that folks in those sorts of vulnerable neighborhoods are definitely on the punch list that the city or county is going to look at to make sure any unique wrinkles in the area are taken account of is good. That's a good outcome in the law. So I think looking at what Mr. Gomez has done is a good idea, but I do think having that element as part of the bill is distinctly a positive.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, would you like to close, Senator?
Yes, I would just close with this. When I went on the toxic tour, we went to a neighborhood, some newer homes that had been built, very nice homes, and the folks that bought the homes were very concerned because there was going to be a huge warehouse that was built literally in their backyard. And there was a field there, and I said, well, did you check it out? And they said, actually, we did, and it's zoned residential, so we felt very comfortable about buying our homes here. Now the city is trying to change it to be commercial and build this warehouse. So those are the concerns I have. People who actually do their due diligence and then have the plan changed and have this huge warehouse built 70 feet from their back door. So I appreciate the discussion. I think we can get where we need to be and would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Okay, yeah, and I have a strong interest, I'm sure we all do, in community and civic engagement. And I think this is just another great tool to be able to go out to communities and invite them in to be able to have a voice. And I would also echo the sentiments of Mr. Gordon that it would be great to see these things get worked out, the nexus issue as well as the definition issue, before we get to the floor.
Sounds great.
Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
The motion is due pass, and we refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Eggman.
Aye.
Eggman, aye. Waldron. Alejo. Aye. Alejo, aye. Bonilla. Bonilla, aye. Chu. Cooley. Aye. Cooley, aye. Gaines. Gordon. Aye. Gordon, aye. Linder. The
bill is out 5-0, Senator.
Thank you, Ms.
very
Chairwoman.
much. Could we entertain a motion to pass the consent calendar?
I'd like to move that we...
Secretary, please call the roll.
Eggman.
Aye.
Eggman, aye. Waldron. Alejo. Alejo, aye. Bonilla. Bonilla, I. Chu. Cooley. Cooley, I. Gaines. Gordon. Gordon, I. Linder.
It would also be appropriate at this time if someone wanted to do a motion and a second for Mr. Senator Canella's bill. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass and we refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Eggman.
Aye.
Eggman, I. Waldron. Alejo. Alejo, I. Bonilla. Chu. Cooley. Cooley, I. Gaines. Gordon. Gordon, I. Linder.
Bill needs one to be on call. Senator Hall.